Social works, 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 yeah, S works, everyone put it in their hands. You know it's a vibe, they're waiting in line to get up and flood up the stands. Yeah, we in this together, we feeling like fam, it's all about peace, so pull up with friends. You better come through with you and your crew, cause everybody going in. S works, so we keep it lit. You can see how we move the city from the west side to the east. Ooh, you can feel it how we leave through. It's all about the youth. Change the world through the tunes. Make the world to a better place. And S works what we do.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works, social works. Keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open, but we call it SWorks. Action no Taylor the killer verse. I doing my film, no city hurt. They killing our babies, this work on crazy. I pray for schools for the kiddies. We the city, yeah, we litty. All I know is it's work. Work hard, keep it busy. Know the life can be tricky, but please just let me finish. Let me just be a witness. SWorks handle business.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works.
Ready or not, here we come. South side, west side, east side, north side. Up on the run, we ain't for the none. We came in the party, we here for the fun. Celebrate life, the party we young. Sky is the limit, we looking above. We up in the sun, no matter what, we stay on the run. Ha, S work, do your thing. S work, keep it lit. Bullseye, keep your aim. Yeah, we up on the jib. North side, that's the way. Ready or not, here we come. S work, keep the energy. Look, yeah, we never unplug. S work, show some love. Yeah.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works. Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Yeah, S works, everyone put it in their hands. You know it's a vibe, they're waiting in line to get up and flood up the stands. Yeah, we in this together, we feeling like fam, it's all about peace, so pull up with friends. You better come through with you and your crew, cause everybody going in. S works, so we keep it lit. You can see how we move the city from the west side to the east. Ooh, you can feel it how we leave through. It's all about the youth. Change the world through the tunes. Make the world to a better place. And S works what we do.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works, social works. Keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open, but we call it SWorks. Action no Taylor the killer verse. I doing my film, no city hurt. They killing our babies, this work on crazy. I pray for my city to reimburse. Private schools for the kiddies. We the city, yeah, we litty. All I know is it's work. Work hard, keep it busy. Know the life can be tricky, but please just let me finish. Let me just be a witness. SWorks handle business.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works.
Ready or not, here we come. South side, west side, east side, north side. Up on the run, we ain't for the none. We came in the party, we here for the fun. Celebrate life, the party we young. Sky is the limit, we looking above. We up in the sun, no matter what, we stay on the run. Ha, S work, do your thing. S work, keep it lit. Bullseye, keep your aim. Yeah, we up on the jib. North side, that's the way. Ready or not, here we come. S-Work, keep the energy. Look, yeah, we never unplug. S-Work, show some love.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Yeah, S works. Everyone put it in their hands. You know it's a vibe. They're waiting in line to get up and flood up the stands. Yeah, we in this together. We feeling like fam. It's all about peace. So pull up with fans. You better come through with you and your crew, cause everybody going in. S works, so we keep it lit. You can see how we move the city from the west side to the east. Ooh, you can feel it how we leave through. It's all about the youth. Change the world through the tunes. Make the world to a better place. Saying S works, what we do.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open mic, we call it SWorks. Action on Untitled the killer verses. I do on my family, my city hurt. They killing our babies, this war going crazy. I pray for my city to reimburse. Private schools for the kids. We the city, yeah, we litty. All I know is it's work. Working hard, keep it busy. Know the life keep it tricky, but please just let me finish. Let me just be a witness. S works, handle business.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works.
Ready or not, here we come. South side, west side, east side, north side. Up on the run, we ain't for the none. We came in the party, we here for the fun. Celebrate life, the party we young. Sky's the limit, we looking above. We up in the sun, no matter what, we stay on the run. Ha, S-Work, do your thing. S-Work, keep it lit. Bullseye, keep your aim. Yeah, we up on the jib. North side, that's the way. Ready or not, here we come. S-Work, keep the energy. Look, yeah, we never unplug. S-Work, show some love.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works.
SWorkshops are a series of online workshops featuring the many incredibly talented friends of SocialWorks. This series aims to inspire and educate, bringing local and national creatives live to your smartphone. They will be sharing and teaching specific aspects of their craft. A wide variety of professions, interests, and hobbies are represented within our curriculum. Did we mention it's a fundraiser too? The stay-at-home notice has students wondering what's to come. For some, graduation and prom will both be canceled. This campaign will directly fundraise a celebration event for those students within the Chicagoland area. Once it's safe, of course. Tune in to any of our socials for one or all of the SWorkshops. You can find the full schedule of programming at socialworkshi.org or on our Instagram. Classes start Monday, April 13th. We'll see you there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's SWorkshop. My name is Thaddeus Tukes, and I'm a vibraphonist, composer, and pianist right here in Chicago, Illinois. For those of you all that are joining the SWorkshops for the first time, this is now week 6 of SWorkshops, which is a virtual masterclass series hosted by SocialWorks, a nonprofit here in Chicago, Illinois. The SWorkshops were created to raise funds for students throughout Chicago and abroad who are missing their proms and their graduations this year as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm excited to participate and hopefully help bring more funds in for this amazing event. I think about my high school experience, which honestly wasn't terribly long ago, though it is a little longer than I'd like to admit. And it was a wonderful time. I remember my prom and I remember my graduation and how excited I was. But now, years later, I really kind of value and remember most is just being with my family and friends and knowing that I had done the work to achieve this great honor. So I know many of you all are really sad right now, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to not know how you feel. It's okay to be really frustrated that you had anticipated a certain celebration for yourself at the end of whatever 4 year stint or 8 year stint you're at. And that's okay. But in the long term of life, if you have people around you that love you and care about you and are continuing to support you and your passions and your dreams, then really you have everything you need. Um, and it's hard to remember that and hard to internalize that, but you will see that one day. I do want to remind you that there is a donate link right at the bottom of your screen where if you feel inclined, you can also give funds to help the Social Works prom event. Um, and also, I believe if you're on Instagram, there's a button within the Instagram app that you can use to donate to the Social Works prom. Additionally, I would also like to remind you that all of the social works videos, or SWorkshops videos, I should say, are and will be available after their live streaming at youtube.com/socialworks. Not only do we want you to watch your favorite videos again, but subscribe to the channel and see what is coming in the future. Social works, I've been knowing about and enjoying watching the progress of social works since 2017. I had a conversation with Justin a long time ago before the first museum event happened, and he was just so excited, to put out this new platform and create something not only that would benefit the greater Chicago community, but would be driven by the creators of that very community that he has been a part of, or as he explained to me, since high school. So it's amazing to see where social works has come and what you all are doing. So thank you again to Social Works for having me. Again, my name is Thaddeus Tukes. I am a vibraphonist. I will be releasing my third album titled Let's Vibe on streaming services in July. But if you are so inclined, check out my website. It's ThaddeusTukes.com. It's exactly how it's spelled in the banner. And you can get some merchandise. I got hats, I got sweatshirts, and I also have the album available on Bandcamp currently if you'd like to support your local artists. So before I continue with all of this amazing information that I can't wait to share with you, I'd like to first take a minute to just breathe and stretch and meditate because it is really early on a Wednesday morning and we all need a little time to wake up. So we're going to take about 5 to 7 minutes for you to do whatever you want. If you're in your chair, you can just breathe from your chair. If you feel so inclined to stand up and do your morning stretches, if you want to dance, whatever you want to do, just to kind of be mindful and in this moment and settle your spirit on this morning and feel the vibe. Awesome. I hope everybody feels relieved and relaxed. And now we can talk about the vibes. Before I get started, I do want to take a few questions. Ooh, shout out to Lily St. Clair Music. Appreciate the love. Thank you. Here's a question from Anonymous. What is your favorite project you've released? Oh, y'all are jumping in deep today, huh? Well, to be honest, I'm the type of artist that once the album is out, I kind of it's no longer my favorite album. It's like my favorite thing to listen to, and that's all I will listen to until I put it out. And then once it's out, I'm like, okay, well, that was cool. What's next? So I can say I've liked all of the albums that I've put out at different points in time since they've been out. One of them has been a favorite over another for a variety of reasons. For those of you that don't know me, I have 2 albums out already. The first one is called Vibes, which I released in 2016, and it is a tribute to jazz vibraphonists throughout the Pantheon. That was self-released. And the second album was called Thad's Groove, which was all original songs, and it's a Chicago-based collaboration where I worked with about 20 local jazz musicians to create this 9 or 10 track body of work to kind of represent what I felt was a huge part of Chicago's young sound. And then Let's Vibe, which is available for purchase on my website at ThaddeusTukes.com, but coming to streaming in July. I love for different reasons. The composition process was a lot of fun, as well as working with the people who are on the album with me. How is the vibraphone unique and different than other percussive instruments? I'm going to get there in a second. And what are collaborations that you've done that you've enjoyed the most? Ooh. So you all have given me a nice setup for this. So first, let us talk about this wonderful, beautiful, amazing instrument behind me, formerly called the vibraphone, but commonly known as the vibes. Now, let's talk a little bit about what is the vibes and what does that mean and what has that meant historically for the instrument, for jazz, and for Chicago. So, in order to understand the vibes, we have to go way to New Orleans. Back in the day, as they used to say, let's say late 1800s, early 1900s, there was an area in New Orleans called Storyville, which is now the Treme, if you've ever been there or if you're from there. And in Storyville, you had all these clubs and bars. I don't know if some of you all are under 18, so places for nightlife activities that were very popular and kind of helped cultivate a music scene in New Orleans. One of those musicians that was in the scene was Louis Armstrong, and you also had Joe King Oliver, as well as others. Storyville was popping. Everybody was getting a groove on in Storyville. And essentially, the story goes that there are a lot of people from the military who would go to Storyville to listen to music and see the musicians, and then would go to base and line up the next day and essentially not be there because they were out partying all night and such. So it was agreed upon by the people, let's say generals. We don't know what their rank was, but someone in the military to kind of shut Storyville down because they felt it was lowering the morale of the soldiers. Side effect of this is that so many of those musicians that were down there lost their jobs. That was their livelihood, Storyville. So once it was closed down, they had to find other recourses. Some of them ended up giving up music forever and never coming back. Others, like Joe King Oliver and Louis Armstrong, came to Chicago. Louis Armstrong actually came to Chicago on an invitation from Joe King Oliver, who had moved here a few years prior, set up shop, set up his own band, and was one of the most popular musicians in Chicago at the time. Now, again, this is the early 1900s, 1910s, in there. And at that time, as a result of Joe King Oliver, as well as people that were already here and playing music, Chicago was emerging as this music capital, specifically for jazz. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that, but the one thing that is, I think, so unique to Chicago and so special about Chicago was the creation of the vibraphone during the same time. Now, today and back then, you had a lot of instrument production companies that were in the Midwest. Apparently, I was talking to a man at a company called Century Mallets, which I'll get to in a second, and he was explaining to me a lot of that had to do with the railroads. The Midwest area was pretty much where all of the trains had to pass in order to get around the country. So it made sense for these big warehouses to kind of be centered around the railroads. There was a company in Indiana called the Leedy Company, Leedy, and they were an instrument creator, and everybody during this time was experimenting with new instruments and trying to create new things. And they created this instrument that they called the vibraphone. And it had a vibrato motor like mine does, and but the difference was the keys were made of a different material, steel at that time, and it didn't have a damper pedal. So think of a piano when I say damper pedal, and you can have a sustain pedal, and the notes ring, and then you release the sustain, and the notes dampen. That's what I have here, and I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. Well, there was a company in Chicago called the Deacon Company, and they were also an instrument manufacturer with an emphasis on percussion instruments. And they heard this new vibraphone in a song called Aloha O, which was an old vaudeville track. And it was a, Hawaiian style track. And they liked the sound of it, but there were some tweaks they wanted to make to improve. So what Deacon did is kind of look at the original design. They added a damper pedal so I can mute. They added a motor that changes speed, gradual motor versus the original motor that was just one speed. And then they made the keys out of aluminum instead of steel. A lot of technical stuff. They called it the Vibra Harp. If you all have previously known about the vibraphone or even studied the vibraphone, you might see some old interviews and TV shows where they introduce somebody on the Vibra Harp. Technically, they are correct. Deacon did copyright the Vibra Harp, but as other companies kind of looked at Deacon's new design and recreated it, the vibraphone name eventually stuck. So how does that relate to Chicago? Well, remember Louis Armstrong? As he stayed in Chicago and built his career and started his own band, he started to try to get the best musicians in Chicago to be in his band, as I do today and many other musicians that are my peers. And one of those musicians was Lionel Hampton. I don't know if you know about Lionel Hampton, but Lionel Hampton moved to Chicago with his family when he was 6 years old. And he grew up on the south side of Chicago. He was part of the Bud Billiken Club, as well as other things throughout the city. About when he was in his early 20s, he had really started to build his own name as a young percussionist in Chicago. During his days in the Bud Billiken Club, he was in the drum corps and all of that. So he had some experience on drums, snare drums, as well as xylophone. And Louis Armstrong one day heard Lionel Hampton on drums and loved what he heard and decided to hire him for his band. So Lionel Hampton's first big gig was with, I don't know, Louis Armstrong, who's probably the most famous jazz musician at that time, if not one of the most, we all know him in jazz history. So Lionel Hampton is playing with Louis Armstrong, playing drums. They're doing some tours. They're going around the country. And one day they go to do a TV slot at NBC Studios in Los Angeles. And Louis Armstrong sees this new instrument because doesn't this sound a little bit familiar to you? Yes, the NBC theme song is actually created on the vibraphone. So they had one backstage at the studio. Lionel Hampton, like I said, had some experience with the xylophone, so he went to play this new vibraphone instrument. And I always think it's so funny that Lionel Hampton, who was from the south side of Chicago, discovered an instrument that was created in Chicago out in LA, just to show you the vibes culture. Started playing this instrument, fell in love with it, came back to Chicago, played with Louis Armstrong for a while, but Lionel Hampton was just so good on vibraphone that he had to expand his swings and expand his bass. He left Louis Armstrong. It was agreeable terms, at least that's what history says, and started playing with other people, playing on his own. But most notably, he started playing with Benny Goodman in the Benny Goodman Quartet. And this not only changed the shape of music in Chicago, but it really changed the world. A lot of music historians suggest that Benny Goodman and Lionel Hampton and the rest of the members of the Benny Goodman Quartet were the first form of public integration in the United States. Now, we know that that's one aspect of integration and isn't as inclusive as we'd like it to be, but during that time, it was a super big deal. If you don't know about Benny Goodman, I don't really have the time to talk about him today, but you should look it up on Wikipedia. So as Lionel Hampton is getting this worldwide recognition, people are also learning about this new instrument that may have been at their local high school, but who knows how to play it. And he started to kind of become known for his good vibes. Now, the word vibes wasn't really used before the vibraphone, even though the word vibrations obviously was around. But the first usage in we have of documented history of the word vibes is actually in reference to the vibraphone. And the first usage of that word in the English language is in reference to the vibraphone. So we can almost argue that the word vibes wouldn't exist without the vibraphone and wouldn't be as popular and pervasive in our culture if it weren't for Chicago's own Lionel Hampton. So I'm gonna take a break, see what questions we have here. Shout out to, again, Lily St. Clair Music. What is the most interesting instrument you've coupled with the vibes? Which haven't you collaborated with that you'd like to? So the most interesting instrument I think I've coupled with the vibes was harp. I did a harp and vibes duo, and that was pretty epic. The resonance, the mutual resonance from the two instruments was ethereal. The woman I was playing with was a genius, Kara. She's actually the mother of one of my high school classmates. And I had been used to performing vibes with piano or horns, but never a string instrument, especially a harp. So I think that's been my most exciting collaboration. And recently, for Christmas, I got my sister a ukulele, and we're working on some collaborations. And I'm loving the sound of vibraphone and ukulele, especially because in a lot of ways they are the closest we'll get to African indigenous instruments in America, such as the kora and the vibraphone. In fact, the vibraphone is actually what I call America's African American instrument because it actually is fashioned after the balafone via the xylophone. We can get there if y'all have some questions. Shout out to Kayla Drew. Yes, vibes. Yes, vibes. Hey. Another question. What was the piece you played during the relaxing opening? Well, I'm glad that it was very, very relaxing for you. That makes me happy. It was called Wednesday Morning Improvisation #1. So check it out on YouTube to be on my mixtapes. What are collaborations that you've done and you've enjoyed the most? Well, I think that I've enjoyed all of my collaborations. I've been fortunate to play in a variety of settings, play a variety of music. Um, I've been in hip hop bands and led hip hop bands. I've been in R&B groups. I've played country music, gospel music, classical music. So I would say that any time that I have the opportunity to collaborate with another talented musician is a fantastic experience. Um, who are your biggest influences? My biggest influences? That is tricky, but I'll say this is who I've been really studying recently. Of course, Lionel Hampton on the vibraphone, Milt Jackson, Bobby Hutcherson, Gary Burton, you just Stephon Harris, any vibraphone player really I'm influenced by. Outside of the vibraphone, I am really into Roy Hargrove, may he rest in peace, as well as McCoy Tyner, may he also rest in peace. Um, and outside of jazz, I've really been into studying Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones is so amazing to me because he was a very talented musician. In fact, Quincy Jones was the trumpet player in Lionel Hampton's big band for a while. I don't know if you all watched the Quincy Jones documentary on Netflix, which I recommend. Um, but not only that, his way of arranging strings is so unique. If you think about uh, Michael Jackson songs, really, or even a lot of that kind of disco funk era music, and you hear these whirling strings that kind of aurally give you the sense of a disco ball. And to know that a lot of that was Quincy Jones, and he kind of made his way in the music industry as an arranger and trying to arrange for everybody is just really inspiring. And I'll take one more before I go to the next session. How did you assemble your band and who is in it? Well, I tend to put together a variety of bands. So when I'm booking for a show, I'm going for a sound, and each group of musicians is going to have a different sound. It's very, because I play in such a variety of spaces, it's very difficult for me to just have one band that plays everything because different people have different influences and different musical references that might be more appropriate in different contexts. Um, but I've played with a bunch of the musicians in Chicago. If you want a comprehensive list, you can check out my website, ThaddeusTukes.com, and go to the discography tab, and you'll see the musicians who are on my album. If you peruse the website a little more, you'll see videos of different people I played. I've just performed with so many people in Chicago and abroad that it'd be very difficult for me to like tell you everybody that I've played with or everybody who's been in my band. But part of my mission when I came out of college, I went to Northwestern University where they created a major in jazz vibraphone just for me. And part of my mission after graduating was to use my career to build community and bridge gaps in the Chicago jazz and larger music community. I think um, we all know that Chicago has a history of segregation and it's infiltrated a bunch of different aspects of our lives as Chicagoans, including our music scene. But me and a lot of other musicians are determined to do what we can and participate in the way that we can to rebuild the community. And I hope that inspires people in other areas and other aspects of life to do what they can to move forward with empathy and love and peace in their heart. So I'm gonna come back to some questions, but first, let's talk a little bit more about the vibes. Um, Now, I said the vibes came from jazz, but today we're not using the vibes in the jazz context. I mean, I guess I am and some other jazz musicians, but generally speaking, when Trident has a vibes campaign, it's not referring to the vibraphone, although, Trident, if you need the vibraphone, hit me up. But how did we get here? So, the vibes as an instrument, as a result of Lionel Hampton, um, became a little bit more pervasive in our culture. Now, you had other vibraphonists at the time, like Red Norvo, who was born actually the same year as Lionel Hampton, and Cal Jader, and a few other people. Uh, but Lionel Hampton, I think, kind of paved the way for the vibes really opening up in different genres of music. So, not only through the continued eras of jazz, but you would hear it in funk music. You would eventually hear it in house music. You hear it in classical music. You hear it in movie scores and everything, right? This new instrument. So the vibes were used. The word vibes was used in reference to the vibraphone until you get to like the '60s and '70s, and we get into uh, what I guess we call now the hippie movement. You get into funk music. You're having avant-garde jazz, and you have disco music, which is a lot of ways preceding house music. And this instrument keeps popping up all over the place. And vibes, in terms of good vibrations, started to emerge during that funk era, and associated with all the, colors that remind us of that '70s show. Um, and that aspect of vibes became more pervasive, and we see it through the music since then. Even with the Beastie Boys, there's a few articles actually that I've read about that kind of allude to the Beastie Boys reference of vibes as kind of one of the first super modern uses of vibes. Now, I think it goes a little bit before that. But we can even reference that in how the word vibes went from being used for the vibraphone specifically to more about good vibes, which was still a reference to the vibraphone initially, but then became associated with good vibrations. And now in hip hop music, I mean, how many songs do we have about? We have It's a Vibe, we have the baby vibes. The vibes are kind of everywhere. And it would not exist everywhere, especially in our music, if it wasn't for this instrument. And it's kind of cool for me as a vibraphonist and as someone who has studied this to know that the good vibrations, which were caused by Lionel Hampton almost 100 years ago, have come to mean good vibrations in our pop culture in a way that he never could have expected. He never could have anticipated, and passed away before he was able to see our wide usage of the word vibes, which we have to attribute to this instrument and largely to him as one of the pioneers on this instrument. I'm going to take a few more questions and then I have one more piece and more questions. Niku, what's up? Good to see you. Hey, Thaddeus, says Niku, if you weren't playing vibes, what instrument would you be playing? Well, I can say that when I'm not playing vibes, I'm playing piano, sometimes drums or other percussion instruments. If you're asking what instrument would I learn, mm, you know, I really like the bass. Um, and I think musically, it's a musical choice. I like the reinforcement that comes from the bass. I like the control and navigation that any bass player has in a song. And I don't know, bass players look kind of, I think vibraphonists look the grooviest, and bass players come in close behind us. Shout out to my bass players. Anonymous, when venues open back up, where are the best places to see live jazz in Chicago? There is Andy's Jazz Club, which is 11 East Hubbard. There is the Jazz Showcase, which is on Plymouth and Polk, right by Jones High School. There's Winter's Jazz Club, which is on McClure Court and Illinois, I believe. There's the Green Mill, um, which is on Lawrence and something. You can Google. I don't remember the other intersection. Um, and also the Promontory. Now, the Promontory doesn't always have jazz, but seasonally they've had um, a partnership with the Hyde Park Jazz Society. Which, shout out to Hyde Park Jazz Society. Honestly, they played a crucial role in me being able to develop my career as a young professional musician. But they have Sunday night series there, as well as the Quarry on 75th Street. Um, and other than that, if you got like an uncle that played jazz, then you can make your own jazz venue, or auntie, or whomever. How do you use jazz performance to enrich the community? That is a great question, and it takes me to my next piece. So, I want to talk about the vibe in terms of wellness, because we see on social media now about how your vibe affects blah, blah, blah. And that is true. There is clearly documentation that suggests that we are balls of energy. And as balls of energy, we are emitting energy. And the one thing we have control over kind of in our lives is what energy we emit. Um, and oftentimes we uh, are influenced by our environment, are influenced by what happens with us. And sometimes that causes us to change the energy that we emit, or feel the need to hide and diminish our glow because we feel like we've been attacked for our pure energy. But the vibes will say, in terms of spirituality, that what you put out is what you get back, right? Now, of course, in life, we have chance and we have coincidence and things that are just out of your control that we couldn't have foreseen. But across religions and in science, we all believe in karma, right? Even an action has an equal opposite reaction. I know my science people out there, it's worded differently, but you feel my vibe. So we kind of all believe in karma. So, to some extent, we must believe that what we put into the world, we will get back in some way. And if we put enough good into the world and we continue to vibe right and vibe very high, because you can vibe low, you can get lost in the sauce and have a very low vibrational frequency. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes you have to go through that. And the universe is very forgiving. So it's okay to have hard times, but across religions and across beliefs, a lot of us believe that what happens and what you do is going to be returned to you in some way. So when I think about the vibe, I think about, how am I communicating with the people around me? Am I speaking to them with love and peace and empathy and compassion? Or am I speaking to them in a way that suggests that their vibe is not important to me? When I think about jazz and I think about the vibe, not only do we think about the instrument, but I was actually talking to one of my old professors, or texting him, Victor Goins, and we were talking about the three aspects of jazz, which, in a nutshell, are syncopation, the blues, and the swing. If you would like to learn more, hit me up on social media, we'll talk. But I said that the fourth element is the vibe. Because in jazz, if you don't have someone else and you don't have that communication and you all aren't relating to each other's experience, then you're not really making jazz. Y'all are just both playing music in the same room. But if you want to vibe with somebody, you have to be able to understand and communicate with them. And it's hard to understand people that are different than us. And it's hard for us to not take someone's identity or beliefs as a personal attack or personal affront, because once we become defensive, we can't move with a good vibe. We can't be empathetic and understanding because we feel attacked. But it's also okay for us to protect our energy when we are attacked. The important thing is, if you're putting good vibes and if we vibe, we can build community and we can figure everything out. So I think that jazz, not only in itself, is a form of building community because it does require a mutual conversation with you and one or more other musicians, but it also is a means to build a community in that we can use the tenets of jazz, which require listening to the other members of the band and being humble enough to know when you need to speak and when you don't need to speak, and understanding as much as you can how many things we have in common, uh, musically or idiomatically, to create a sustainable, healthy community. Next question. You mentioned the NBC theme being a recognizable use of a vibraphone. What other uses may we not realize we are familiar with? Anytime you hear like aliens in or outer space music, it's usually a vibraphone, whether that's Star Trek or in some cases Star Wars. Shout out John Williams. That's like one of my favorite composers of all time. Let's see what else you might hear. It's doorbells. The classic elevator music is usually somebody playing the vibraphone, and it's like a bossa nova on the vibraphone because vibraphone is so easy listening. Now, uh, elevator music. A brief thing about that. If somebody says that something is elevator music, that's not always a bad thing. It's okay to have easy listening music. Everything doesn't have to be a turn up song. So you want to have diversity in the music that you have. For all of my aspiring musicians out there, don't be discouraged because somebody wants to be a hater. It's okay to have elevator music because you know what? Somebody got paid to make that elevator music. Kayla Drew, do you know of any Facebook groups or online communities for vibraphone enthusiasts? Yes, I do. There actually is a group called Vibes Workshop. Kayla Drew, if you add me on Facebook, I will add you to that group. Next, how is playing music therapeutic to you? Wow, that's a great question. So the reason that I decided really to pursue music on a professional level is because music has always been my diary. It's always been a means for me to work through how I feel, work through my thoughts, and really just take time for myself and reflect on my experiences each day. When I was younger, I kind of had trouble expressing my emotions in a succinct way. I think sometimes, kids don't really take time unless they're forced to meditate and reflect on how they're feeling. But when I was playing music, that was my way of reflecting on how I felt. And instead of always verbalizing how I felt, maybe I would write a song about it and just kind of sit with it and reflect on it. So I think that music kind of has an inherent therapeutic effect because performance of it just requires so much meditation and focus and practice. Um, and the more that you practice and focus and pursue excellence on your instrument, the more you find that you are developing control, a better management of your thoughts, better management of your energy, and better self discipline. Now, discipline is really important. As young people, it's really hard for us to stay disciplined, and it's really easy to be undisciplined. It's a lot of things in our society that are designed to feed our vices and feed our impulses and feed the things and trigger us in ways to act against really our best interests and the best interests of our group. Um, so being a musician has kind of helped me develop these skills that not only help with music but helped in school. I was a fantastic student all throughout school because I spent so much time studying this instrument, which gave me these other skills. What four mallet grip do you use? Niku, I use in my left hand, I use Stevens grip, which has two fingers in the mallets. And in my right hand, I use Burton grip. And the reason that I mix them is because I didn't do a lot now, but sometimes when I play, I like to get really wide intervals in my left hand, and I might do a little stride action. And I found that it was very difficult to get that done with just one finger in between the mallets. So I keep two fingers in between my left mallets just so I can get some really pretty wide intervals in my chords. How are you promoting your new project in the time of COVID-19? How are you connecting with your fans? It's been really difficult. To be honest, the first thing is that as a jazz musician, our bread and butter is in live performance, at least for a lot of us. Some people are getting some royalty checks from TV shows or other things, but most jazz musicians' bread and butter is from live performances. So I think I had to accept that things were going to be very different and I had to figure out how to navigate them. So it has taken me some time to really think about how to engage with my fans in a way that's authentic because I do think a lot of what has happened to the music community is things change so fast and people are freaking out. So they're just doing anything, to maintain some attention. But I'm not sure how authentic it is all the time. And I really it's important to me to be as authentic as possible. Um, and it's hard to connect with fans when you're just going through so many emotions. So much happening right now. Um, a lot of people are worried about like their family members staying alive uh, and other things. But some things that I am preparing moving forward are things like this workshop. Um, as well as other virtual listening parties and virtual performances that I have lined up over the next couple months. It's been really cool to move in this virtual space because I do have a little bit of previous experience in it. And for those that don't know, I was also a journalism student while I was at Northwestern. So it's really nice to be able to use a lot of those newsroom production skills in a new context that I never thought I would need to. But now, things have required me to draw on those skills. And yes, I am promoting a new album. It's called Let's Vibe. It will be streaming in July. And like you were kind of alluding to, this is a new time, and there are different ways we're going to have to approach rollout and distribution of the music. But I do have some fantastic things in store. I really explode with excitement every day when I think about the things that we're preparing for you. So please stay in tune with me. You can follow me on social media at VibesCat and also check out my website. The greatest thing you can do for me, I don't donate to my Venmo. If you want to just donate money, donate below to the SWorkShops Prom Fund. If you want to support me directly, go to my website and buy the album on Bandcamp or buy a sweatshirt or buy a hat. And if you buy a physical CD, which is also available for sale, you even get an autographed copy. And that would really help me, and I would really appreciate that. Have you tried to stream a performance? Yes, I have tried to stream a performance, and I will be streaming performances. I am also a proponent of musicians should get paid for their work, and I know things are weird now, and we're really kind of taking chances and doing new things. But I have been trying to find ways to monetize in a virtual world because that's really important. We can't devalue our work because we're in a new time. This is actually the time to be super aware about how we are presenting our work and presenting our art and what things we're looking for in response to that presentation. So yes, but it looks different. Oh, what's up, Press Harris? Can we get a preview of the album? Well, unfortunately, I have 3 minutes, so maybe I can play something in the background as I answer these last few questions. Press Harris, that's my brother. Do you give lessons? Yes, I do give. Um, if you would like lessons, just inbox me and let me know what you want to do. I give lessons not only on vibes, but I give lessons on piano, and I give music theory lessons, and I give a lot of lessons. I'm actually a teacher when I'm not a performer, so I have a pretty extensive curriculum for music, especially Chicago specific based. Studying the vibraphone in the context I did, I've learned stuff about Chicago music that it's just not common knowledge. So let me know. Hit me up at vibescat or ThaddeusTukes.com. Do I work as a studio musician? So if you mean, am I an in-house musician with a specific label or specific recording studio? No. But of course, I do studio work. I've worked with other musicians in the studio as well as going into the studio to produce now 3 albums. And working in the studio is its own monster, and it takes practice and skill. And honestly, I recommend like doing a lot of research because it's easy to waste money in the studio. But if you do your research and you really, really prepare before you go to the studio, you can maximize your time, you can maximize your money. And I have funded all my albums. I am not rich at all. Like, I would, entrepreneur. So, but I've been able to fund things just being super efficient, making sure when I go to the studio, we know the music and we're not still rehearsing. And little things, working with my friends, work with your friends, work with your network. People around you are the best network that you can ever ask for, and they will always help you and always be there for you before any celebrity or institution. Always remember, your people around you are your biggest asset. My whole team is my family, and we are smashing it, but it's just my family, and I couldn't ask for anything better. Did I study music at Northwestern too? The funny thing is, while I was at Northwestern, we had this band called the Syndicate. Now, it took on some different names over time, but we were actually voted the top band on campus all the years we were there, and we were like all jazz musicians and jazz students. So I did study music at Northwestern, but I studied it in a variety of ways, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom, and we did really, really well. Shout out to my Syndicate people. How is it working as an indie artist? Would you sign to a label if the deal is right? This is a great question to end on. So to be brief, because I only have like 30 seconds and I really appreciate y'all hanging and listening, vibing with me. I actually have my own label. I really got to the point of, do I sign to a label or do I not sign to a label? And the real question for me was, do I sign a label and do I start a label? And you will see that Let's Vibe will be put out on Vibestown Studios. Thank you so much. If you like more, hit me up at VibesCat on social media and check me out on ThaddeusTukes.com. Peace and good vibes.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works. Yeah, S works. Everyone put it in their hands. You know it's a vibe. They're waiting in line to get up and flood up the stands. Yeah, we in this together. We feeling like fam. It's all about peace. So pull up with fans. You better come through with you and your crew, cause everybody going in. S works, so we keep it lit. You can see how we move the city from the west side to the east. Ooh, you can feel how we leave through. It's all about the youth. Change the world through the tunes. Make the world to a better place. Saying S works, what we do.
Social works, social works, social works, social, social works, social works, social works, social works. Keep my family out the dirt. This organization, we stopping no Satan and open, but we call it SWorks. Action on Taylor, the killer verses. I do on my family, my city hurt. They killing our babies, this work on crazy. I pray for my city to reimburse. Private schools for the kids. We the city and we litty. All I know is it's work. Work hard, keep it busy. Know the life keep it tricky, but please just let me finish. Let me just be a witness. S-Works handle business.
Social works, social works, social works, social works, social works, social works.
Ready or not, here we come. South side, west side, east side, north side. Up on the run, we ain't for the none. We came in the party, we here for the fun. Celebrate life, the party we young. Sky is the limit, we looking above. We up in the sun, no matter what, we stay on the run. Ha, S work, do your thing. S work, keep it lit. Bullseye, keep your aim. Yeah, we up on the jib. North side, that's the way. Ready or not, here we come. S work, keep the energy. Look, yeah, we never unplug. S work, show some love. Yeah.
Social works, social works, social works, social